7 p.m. It's Monday, the 28th of December, and this is a regularly scheduled workshop meeting. First order of business is roll call. Mrs. Green?
Here.
Mr. Ruggiero?
Present.
Mr. Manley?
Here.
Mr. Lobiondo?
Here.
And Mr. Piaquadio?
Here.
Okay, let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of
of
the United States
of America
and to the
and to the
republic
republic
for
which
which
it
it
stands,
stands, one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
with liberty
for all.
and justice for all.
Okay. Mr. Supervisor, any changes to the agenda?
Number 12, A and B are going to come off the agenda.
Okay.
That's
Any
the only
other,
change. That's the only ones I have.
anything
Aye.
else?
I have nothing.
Nothing. Nothing.
Okay, next we go on to item 5 for approval of audit.
All right, so we're going to look for a motion to approve this audit in the amount of $1,003,683.64.
So move.
I'll second.
Mr. Lobiondo seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Mrs. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Ruggiero?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo?
Yes.
And Mr. Piaquadio?
Yes.
Next, we go on to item 6, which is a resolution, adoption of introductory local law number 5 of 2020, records retention.
All right, so we're looking for a motion to adopt the local law number 5, 2020, dealing with records retention. So I want to make that motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second your motion.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Ruggiero?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo?
Yes.
And Mr. Piaquadio?
Yes.
Next, we go on to item 7. It's a resolution, adoption of introductory local law number 3 of 2020, which is the solar energy pilot.
All right, so again, we're looking for a motion for the adoption of this local law number 3, which is the solar energy pilot. Someone want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion. I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Ruggiero?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo?
Yes.
And Mr. Piaquadio?
Yes.
Next, we go on to item 8 for animal control, a T94 withdrawal.
All right, so here Cheryl Cunningham, Animal Control Officer, is requesting that $752.23 be spent from the T94 account, and that will be the Newburgh Veterinary Hospital. Someone want to make that motion?
So move.
I'll second.
Councilman Ruggiero, did you second that?
No, it's Councilman Lobiondo.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Mrs. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Ruggiero?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo?
Yes.
And Mr. Piaquadio?
Yes.
Next, we go on to item 9 for the police department. First item A is approval to purchase body-worn cameras.
All right, so the chief is suggesting that we purchase some body cams to be worn by the officers. So we're looking for a motion to purchase 45 Axis W100 body-worn cameras and associated software at a cost of $32,969.50. And there's no reoccurring licensing fees. And he's requesting that the purchase be made for this equipment come from, which is a drug seizure money. And it's in the 2020 budget under 3120.485. So someone want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
the motion.
Councilwoman Green seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Mrs. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Ruggiero?
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piaquadio.
Yes.
And then we go on to the second item, which is approval to purchase radar speed signs.
All right, again, we have several of these, and our police chief Campbell is requesting that we purchase 2 more. And I want to thank Paul Ruggiero because he's involved in the placement and relocation of these radar signs, which seem to make a difference. So the motion would be to purchase 2 Evolus radar speed signs with solar panels and mounting kits for a total of $5,775. The signs are solar powered, collect traffic data from both directions, and can be removed and redeployed to different locations. The funds used for this purchase are in the 2020 budget under line item 3120.200. So I'm going to make that motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Councilman Manley. May I have a second, please? May I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piaquadio.
Yes.
Next, we go on to item 10, which is an agreement between the town and the town of Newburgh Emergency Medical Services.
Right. So on this one now, and of course, everybody knew it in the past of Town of Newburgh Volunteer Ambulance. Of course, they have a new name, Town of Newburgh Emergency Medical Services. And this agreement is between the ambulance service and the town. And what this is that they will stand by at 5 of town-held events in 2021. And the cost will be $5,000. So we're paying them like $1,000 each event for standby. And they do provide a service to the town. And this will give them a little bit of help here in these bad times. So does someone want to make a motion that this agreement is okay?
So move.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piaquadio.
Yes.
Next, we go on to item 11, which is for the engineering and the water department. Approval to hire full-time secretary.
All right. And this, and again, is in our 2021 budget. And after interviews, so that this person will share between the engineer as well as the water sewer department. And there, it's to hire Deborah Moriello Deegan as secretary. And it is a civil service position, so it'll be provisional pending her taking that test. It is a full-time position. Under CSEA contract, it'll be a step number 9. The fund appropriation is 1440.5100. And she's already been an employee for some time as a part-timer, so the physical and all isn't necessary. The starting date, January 4th, 2021. So if someone could make that motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piaquadio.
Yes.
Next, we go on to item 13 for the accounting department, which is a budget transfer.
All right. And here we have 3 budget transfers from our accountant, town accountant, Ron Klum. And I'm going to just say as presented here, because these are all budget transfers. So we stay within budget for the 2020 year. So I'm going to make that motion as presented.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second your motion.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piaquadio.
Yes.
Next, we go on to item 14 for adjournment.
All right. So does someone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll
I
make the
will-
motion.
Go ahead.
Councilman Ruggiero made the motion to adjourn. May I have a second, please?
I'll second it with wishes for a Happy New Year for everybody out there. Be safe and don't party too hardy.
I think
this
that's
year.
a message from all of us. I usually don't speak for the board, but I think that goes for all of us.
Okay,
Yeah,
motion,
Happy
exactly.
New Year. I hope it's a better year. It's got to be
Yeah.
a better year, 21 than this 20 years.
Oh, I agree.
okay,
Amen.
motion made and seconded to adjourn at 7:09 PM. Mrs. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piacquadio.
Yes, and thank
Okay,
you,
meeting
everyone.
adjourned.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Thank you.